Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Today I'm gonna take you through a deep dive of deploying an ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript AI components application. Now this is a continuity of the last video I published where I went through the early versions of that application and showed you some of the built-in agentic capabilities. Today I'm gonna show a bit of that, but I'm also gonna dive into deploying the app with its prerequisites, getting it up and running, and then linking an external MCP into your workflow and seeing how that interacts with the GIS. So with no further ado, let's jump to my screen and see how to get that going. I always like to start in my ArcGIS Maps for SDK for JavaScript, just on the intro to building agentic mapping applications. A bit on the components are here. There is some documentation, a video of the built-in app. You can certainly try this as there's a sandbox for this application. There's a bit of explanation on the agents, how do they work, what different context they have, the system prompts, the tools they get access to. There's also some documentation on the built-in agents, navigation, data exploration, help agent, and on agent orchestration to build your own agents within the SDK. There's also other important stuff on setting the web map. I'd say the most important part is creating the embeddings from ArcGIS Online and also having the metadata created. And that was also shown in a different or a previous video that I've published. Please note that I'll post all the links for whatever I'm going to show in the description of this video. There's also some documentation on custom agent and frequently asked questions. So highly recommended to start here as your first anchor page. Now, once that is done, some prerequisites. Most importantly, configure AI assistance. These need to be enabled on your ArcGIS Online organization and only an admin can do that. That's also in the documentation. You need a default administrative role. You sign into the org, go to organizations, settings, AI assistance, and then allow use of AI assistance by the members of your organization. Pretty important step. Now, once that is done, in case you want to deploy the application that I'm going to show in a moment, you will need Git installed. I'm on Mac, so I've got the Mac version, but you need to install any operating system version that you're working with. Node.js, which holds the libraries which you're going to use to install the application, build it, and whatnot. And certainly VS Code, my preference to work with that as it's easy and intuitive. So having these three parts are very essential. Now, as we move forward, the second important part is the application we're going to be working with. And for that, you will need to clone this and work with it locally. And all of that is in the documentation. Now, before getting in there, the first important part is the disclaimer out there. This is a vibe-coded application, and you really need to know how to build these applications when it comes to writing the right prompts out there, following up on what the agent is doing in the back end, what architecture is it following, what level of security, is it being deterministic in its workflows by hard coding values, which we really want to avoid sometimes in certain applications. So a very important part, working closely with an agent to create this application, but being aware of all the different components that are in there. Now, as we go forward, the first important part is cloning the repository. So let's start. I'm going to go to VS Code, that's here. And the first step is opening where I want to work with. So I'm going to go, I clicked Command O or Control O to open. You can also navigate to that through the menu. I'm going to go to Documents, and I've got a directory I want to work with in here. So I'm going to open this guy. And in here, let's go. This is a leftover one. Just to start clean, I'm going to start fresh and paste the commands I got. The first is going to clone the repository, and the second is going to cd into it, and we are in there. To confirm, everything is there. Let's move forward. In here, the next step is npm install to install the dependencies of the application. So I'm going to copy this and again do paste and install, and this is going to install all these dependencies, the node models are created. It's gonna go through this, takes a couple of seconds, really not that much. And I've got everything up. You can run these, it's not essential. You don't need to audit fix just to get this version running of the application. Now, the next step is going up and creating the local config files. I'm gonna use the Mac OS or Linux version, but if you're using Windows PowerShell or Command Prompt, the commands are there. I'm gonna copy this guy and navigate back to VS Code. Also, I've noticed here, yes, navigate back here and paste these guys. And indeed, my env local is created and my hubconfig.json is created. Now you will need to edit this, and I'll start with there. We'll get to the MCP hubconfig in a moment. You will need to replace this with a valid client ID. This is also in the documentation of the repo. So if I go back here, it walks us through step by step of creating this, but I'm gonna show you this straight on. So I'm in ArcGIS Online, I'm gonna go to new item. I'm gonna pick developer credentials, have Auth 2.0 credentials out there, and click next. In here, you will need to add 2 redirect URLs. Since we are working locally, I will need to go back to my repo, and I have these here. So I'm gonna copy this guy, and this is 4, so I'll just change it in the repo, and let's do that. Go here, paste this, add, paste this, and change it to 4. Leave defaults for the application environment. Give it a title. Let's call it Auth for JavaScript SDK AI components. And then that's just for me since it's a demonstration. Hit next. Review these. I highly recommend, by the way, having a summary and a description and tags if you need them, especially if you're going into production. But as again, this is a demo, so I'll skip that. Create it. This will create the authorization, will redirect me to the item page, and that's all I need to copy the client ID that is out here. So I'm gonna copy this. Also note, I'll blur all the secret information just for security purposes. And then I'll navigate back to VS Code and paste this guy here, save, close. That's one step done. Let's go back to the repo. Now this is done. We've replaced it. The next step is local run commands. That's just the bulk of them, but really what you need to do is these two. First, make sure you're CD'd. We are already, so that's not an issue. In at least the first terminal, I'm just gonna copy npm run dev. Paste this guy here. The application is up and running. And as a further step, I'm gonna copy both of these rather than one, and it needs to open in a new terminal. So I'll open a new terminal, paste these two, and my hub server is up and running. And this is the hub server needed to bring in MCP. It will be exposed as an MCP client in the front end, which again, we'll see in a moment. You can go manually edit these configurations here, or you just do it from the UI UX, which again, we'll see momentarily. So the next step is to really test this in action. Let's jump into Chrome. And for that, I'd always like to start with an incognito tab. So I'll bring this here, go full screen, and then I believe I copied the local host. No, I didn't, but that's easy. If I do localhost, that's 5173, and there we go. The application is up and running. I'll sign in, and I'm diverted to my ArcGIS Online. I'll give password in. I'll sign in with my username, and the next step is picking a web map ID. Remember, you need to have embeddings generated on this web map. Links in the description. You can start with a new map. This will enable MCP components, but the built-in agents will not work because there's no embeddings on a new map. So I'm gonna bring in a map ID, which is this guy here, load the map, And as this is loading, you see this is loading in Utrecht with a couple of data points about really historical monuments in Utrecht. You can always go and change the web map ID from the map itself by adding one here. You see it's pulled with its title out there. We've got that up and running. The next step is testing it. And I first want to test the built-in capabilities. So I want to start with what is the data in the map. This, in theory, should trigger the help agent. Indeed, there you go. It will execute the help based on your question and try to figure out what's in the map and bring it back to the user. Keep in mind, these could take 5 to 20 seconds, depending on the internet, depending on what the question you're asking and how much data you want to bring back. Indeed, it's a historical moment, description, a feature layer of historical moments, some of the fields out there, and then a bit of what the agent can do. Well, you can always ask it, what are your skills? And this is a custom agent that I built in there that gets just all the skills of the existing agent in there, or of this assistant specifically in the application. And we can see we've got help, navigation, data exploration. These are built in. These are custom, and I might show them at a later stage. And then the MCP Hub component will leave that till the last bit of the workflow. Now, I'd like to test one last component that is built in, one last agent that is built in the AI component, which is the data exploration. And for that, I'm going to ask it to show historic monuments and summarize them. Close this. This should trigger the data exploration agent in this use case, which it did. It's going to searching the vector, bringing the query results as a layer, and then can hopefully filter all of that on the map with a good little summary down here. I can fast forward through this, or we can wait a second. No need to fast forward. It did it. 108 features, available attributes include subcategory, etc. Now, wait a minute. The data didn't go anywhere. I just have a zoom dependency. If I zoom in, there you go. Everything that is gray is no data or doesn't fit this filter. Everything that is pink is exactly what we asked for. Let's confirm the pink ones. If I click here, there we go, archaeology, and there should be 108 of these. If I click on this, gray, not archaeology. Indeed, it is Boerderijen, molens, and bedrijven. Let's talk about Dutch later. Now, with this, we've showed the built-in agents, the built-in components. The next step I want to show is bringing an MCP component in. And that is going to work somewhere here. There's multiple ways to bring MCP, depending if you're going to deploy it locally, if you have a URL for it and whatnot. For now, we're going to work on deploying a local component and bringing it in. To do so, I'm going to navigate back to my browser, close this, and we're going to thank Matteo for having this repo up there. In this repo, we're going to utilize the MCP NewsAPI Server. And I'm going to go through the steps of deploying that. The first is cloning the repo. So let's copy this and navigate back to VS Code. Where's my VS Code? Here. Open a new terminal. Make sure you're not in the repo itself, which I'm out. Minimize this and git clone the repo. There we go. The next step is cding there and then going back to documentation. Something that I can do for now since we're gonna this exactly. First step, npm install. Let's do that. And then as this is installing, npm run build. Very simple. That build is done and we see that in here. We're gonna be using the index in a moment. There's one more last comment, which is export news API key. You will need to register for the news API and get their key. For the sake of this demo, I'm having just a developer example that I can work with. So I'm gonna paste this in, jump up, go here, copy my blurred IP, and then replace it, run it, done. The next step, let's go back to the repo and keep moving. So you can directly run the server through your machine. I don't want to do this. I've already built it. I want to use the MCP runner client in this use case that I have configured. So all I have to do is copy this code, navigate back to my application, which now we can bring this here, paste this. I'm gonna delete these because these are gonna cause errors. I need to replace my API key. Paste this guy here, and then the last update I need in theory is the path for the index.js. And to do so, I go here, build index.js, copy path, and there we go. Now, I can go and hit import JSON, but I want to show you something. I'm going to copy this, I'm going to close this so we can just paste it again. Show me current news from, let's see, I want to show two hot places at the moment, Beirut or Kiev. Let's go to Beirut first, since that's my home city. And I'm assuming this should get us nothing at the moment because there's no MCP in there. Indeed, MCP Hub did not expose any tools. It replied from my last entry, assuming that's what I need, but that's not what I want. I'd want to show this again. Well, it's still there, so I don't need to paste it. I'll import JSON, and this is the first sign. MCP News API, green, and it's running locally on my machine with a News API key. Now, you can also configure this through the interface. If you don't want to do any JSON, you fill these in. We'll talk about this maybe a bit more in the later videos. I'll click done. This is refreshed automatically. Let's go and ask it the same question. What are the current news headlines in Beirut? And let's see what's going to happen. The intent, MCP Hub. That's great. That's the agent that was registered and it's executing now. It's calling the News API MCP component, bringing back the answers to me, and hopefully it's going to give me a reasonable summary along with a map updated for that. I'll leave this to run for a moment, fast forward, and come back to it. Great. The assistant just replied utilizing the MCP Hub with the latest hostile news per se that are coming from Beirut. Now let's examine one of these return points, and indeed I do see a source point. This is for Al Jazeera with some information. This is, remember, all dynamic, all on the client side. I can go and look this in the legend, so it's added, all dynamic again. For the sake of this demo, let's push one more prompt since we're utilizing News API, and let's now go to Kiev. So what are the current news headlines in Kiev? And I'll push that on, and also again I'll fast forward through the process. We'll jump back out and back in. And back in, and again couple of news returned for Kiev with the navigation to Kiev. Let's examine the pop-up, and indeed some supporting news with the information of the articles that are included and whatnot. Again, this is a proof of concept. This is not intended for a production product. This is to show you capabilities of what can you do and what can you work with within the ArcGIS AI components. So I highly recommend that you clone the repo, deploy it, work with your own components, and let me know what you think. Let me know what works and what doesn't. And also if you'd like to see any other available MCP components coming into this system. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching and see you soon. Bye.